I think there's this belief, because we've been sold like the love and light version of spirituality, that it's just like the tiny tip of a really big iceberg. I think sometimes we make up a story that the way that we'll know we're doing spirituality right is if everything continues to get better and better and better and better and better and better.
Oh yeah, like life is only good.
Right, like it's like the stock market. We just want it to be a straight up shot.
Right.
And if there's a little dip, it's like, oh, what I do wrong.
Yeah.
I'm doing life wrong. And I teach a very different model of living where it's cyclical, where we're going to have up times and down times.
People are fascinating, especially up close. More especially when you get them talking about the things that they love. This is From the Hip, conversations in the service of passion, purpose, and play. I'm Adrianne Gunn. You ready to play? Today on From the Hip, I'm talking with author, singer, and spiritual coach Starr Sheppard-Decker. We get to talking about authenticity and what it really means to live a spirit-led life.
Hi, maybe.
Hello.
Perhaps. Are you looking at us, looking at us? Looking at you, looking at us?
I'm trying to look at you looking at us.
Oh, I can see us. Look at me, look at us, look at us.
You can see us? Oh my God.
Look at you, looking at us, looking at us. Okay.
That's deep.
Is it? It's pretty sweet. So we are live on Facebook. We are we, and we'll tell you that in a second. We're gonna share out. Hey.
I want to find us so I can share us.
Live.
Hello, everybody.
I'm gonna tag you, Starr.
Tag me, please.
Boom.
Oh, there we are.
Super tagged. I just tagged you so hard. Well, I tagged you kind of gently.
I have
actually
been tagged. Watch us live now.
From the hip.
Cool. It is shared on my page. Hopefully we'll have some people here in a minute.
I put it on my personal page.
Ooh.
It's my page and it's personal.
That's right.
All right. So I think in this instance, I have to do the thing where we don't just talk.
Oh, where you like tell them stuff?
Did you hear a gach in the distance?
I heard a gach.
You all right?
I see
smiling.
glitchies.
Something got messed up.
Which thing got messed up? Okay. Perfect.
Sorry.
False alarm.
Question.
Are we restarting?
No, we're good.
We're still
Oh,
live?
we're still there?
We're still there.
Okay.
Just some sort of amorphous thing is
Well, the
messed
Matrix
up.
is really challenging us today.
This is our second live feed. This is our first live feed on the Facebooks, so that's exciting. I'm Adrianne Gunn, and I'm getting to geek out and hang out with my friend here. Well, you get to say your name.
Starr with 2 R's.
Starr with 2 R's.
Sheppard-Decker. And you know what I just realized? We
No.
both have double letters on our first name and our last name.
Super
That's
doubles.
awesome.
Double.
That's a requirement for me.
I love it. I wanted to be Double Barrel Productions forever ago when I had a production company. But so many people are double barrel lots of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's not what I am. That's not my thing.
You're like, I'm not those people.
Nope.
I feel that.
So I invited you here, and I invited you here.
Hi.
Are you here? Have you arrived?
Hey, Laureen. So glad you're watching. Hi.
Hey, we have a Lorraine. So this is our first attempt at doing a conversation.
Right.
And then also lively having people potentially chat with us. We may check in with what's going on there. We sort of see it. I've got a giant TV, but it's still small type. The font is small.
Fix that.
Oh, wait.
We can fix that. Make it bigger.
We don't have to fix it in post. We just fix it right now.
Woo!
We have a fun friend, CJ, or Charles, in the corner. He's hanging out in my bedroom with a fancy couple of computers. And this is so surreal. You're watching us watch somebody resize Windows on a computer. I don't know
How engaging this is.
how engaging
exciting.
or entertaining it is to have us watch.
Have us watch them, watch us, watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's deep. Wait, we did that already.
Super meta. Super meta.
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's good.
That's
yeah,
great.
thank you.
Oh, so the last guest I had, we were geeking around the whole like challenge of the what are you and how that's kind of a somewhat annoying thing. I'm frustrated by the fact that I have about 8 different things that I do for a living even.
Right.
And it was like, hey, what do you do? What day of the week is it?
Right. Yeah,
Right?
same here.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I know the one of the fun reasons why I thought it'd be great to get to sit with you.
Yeah.
I have a picture of you as being in a similar place of helping people. And I
Love the
know
people.
some realm of spiritness or coachness. How do
of those
you
things.
tend to answer that question when people are like, hey, who are you? What do you do?
Gosh, that's a great question. It depends, like you said, where I am, both physically, like what group I'm with or who I'm talking to, and also where I am, like internally, that day.
What day of the week is it? Who am I?
If it's like a businessy event, I will lead more with a business like answer. You want to hear my "What do you do" statement?
Ooh.
You ready?
You ready?
All right. So when someone says, let's role play.
Okay, yeah. Hey, I'm Adrianne.
Oh, hi, Adrianne. Nice to meet you. I'm Starr with 2 R's.
Starr with 2 R's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's important. I'm glad you told me that.
I tell everybody.
Well, it's just as important if like you have a Sarah or do you have an H or no
Right?
H?
That's super important.
Different Catherines. Is it a Y? Is it a C?
2 N's, 1 N. I mean, these are the things we need to know.
Gunn, 2 N's.
Yes.
Right. It's a pleasure to meet you here.
Nice to meet you too.
Hey, so what do you do? What
I
brings you
love that
here?
question. So, I actually do events for coaches and healers.
Oh, wow.
But in my private practice, I work with coaches and healers who are managing their practice in the midst of personal crisis.
Oh.
So like loss, illness, injury, and I really help them to find sanity and sustainability, all while navigating that in the public eye.
Boom. Did you hear that? That was beautiful.
Practiced that before.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So that would be my answer at like a businessy event. But if I was just like meeting somebody, I tend to start with, I homeschool my 14-year-old who's never been to public school. I'm a professional vocalist, and I do events for coaches and healers, and I'm a coach.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like keep it simple.
Totally.
Like, I'm all these things.
I think we were in circles together and had many conversations. I think I even had an entire coffee with you.
Yes.
And it had been like 3 years of knowing you, as anyone does.
Yeah.
I had no idea you were a mom.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have a prejudice against children. I mean, I'm fully aware because I understand
Fair.
now how prejudice
I'm laughing,
works.
but actually, I think the majority of society does.
So the way that prejudice and bias works is that you just literally don't see, or like it doesn't enter your world.
Right.
And I was literally in a Red Robin once, and I'd been sitting there for 45 minutes, and I had no idea there were children. Like I was signing the check, and I looked up, and suddenly I could hear there were children at every single table surrounding the table I was at, but I had no idea where they were there.
You could just like, bloop, block
Yeah,
it out.
so my filter just apparently filtered out the possibility that anybody I was meeting was also a parent of tiny humans. So
It's pretty funny. I know, and I just connected with someone who I've also known for years. Actually, that same night at the event that we went to a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she too, like, knew I had a 14-year-old, but she was all shocked to learn that I also had a 19 and 18-year-old. She's like, I didn't know you had 3 kids.
Right.
And, there's some drama and trauma around the first 2 kids, which is part of why I don't necessarily talk about that all the time.
Sure.
So, previous marriage, funky stuff. People who get to see me at my events and stuff, I share a little bit more about my personal story about that. But yeah, it's just funny to people like, I've known you for years and I didn't even know you had 3 kids. Like, it's a very common thing. I guess because I'm not, I don't perform family.
Right. Well, that's kind of a choice.
Right. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying that there are, that people are very identified with their whole family, and they
Often.
share a lot of pictures, and there's always kids' pictures, and there's, pictures of their family in their profile, and I love that. That's great. I love being connected with that. My family's not really into being that with me. They're really like, no, you be out there. You're connected with thousands of people. Like, you go be the front woman. You can mention me occasionally, but I don't want to be up there with you. So I feel like I have to, so I present me a lot, and then people make up that it's just me.
Well, and it's funny because you can essentially, one of the reasons why I'm doing this project called From the Hip, Conversations in the Service of Passion, Purpose, and Play. The idea of it came to me 4 years ago. Facebook reminded me that Dill Ward and I were sitting literally this day 4 years ago doing one of our first better camera, happy, fancy, like when I decided, hey, I can be in front of a camera and do this thing.
Right.
That was 4 years ago, and I started percolating on this idea of taking some of the amazing conversations that I'd had in life that were life-saving, life-changing, life-rearranging. Like I get paid to have great conversations with people, and getting to know somebody in more depth is just some of the best things that can happen in the world, and we need more of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I was thinking about how until you really start talking to someone and getting to know them more deeply, we like know we like know 2 or 3 things about a person, and that's sufficient.
Yeah.
And that's so sad.
Yeah, that's so funny we're talking about this because that's kind of the motivation behind my event, the Portland Lunch Meetup that I started 2 years ago.
Right.
Was really like, so I have this event once a month where I speak a little, I have a guest speaker, and I do some group coaching.
Sure.
And my motivation was, so I meet all these amazing people at all these networking events, and I don't actually know that much about them, and I haven't got to see them in their zone. Like, I don't really know what they're capable of.
Fair, yeah.
Because we're all just chatting, and and then we're all in the room kind of as learners rather than leaders.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to really create like an opportunity to showcase all this awesome talent that we have right here in Portland, that people don't even get an opportunity to know the depth of what we have to offer because we're just not going there. We're just chatting, and which is understandable. We're at a networking event.
Totally.
We're not going to be like, so let me show you what I have to offer,
Well, right, and the other thing, we have fun new Melissa Mattern's checking in. Lexi, hey
Hi,
Lexi.
Melissa, long time no see. Hey, Lexi.
What is interesting is you can be in a space presenting, you were saying performing. I don't perform the mother thing. We can be in a space where even you walk into a networking event ready to fully connect with people, and you still sort of have to pick the 3 parts of you that, and still trying to be authentic and drop in. One of the reasons why I asked you specifically to hang out with me was I wanted to talk about this positioning of, we're multiple people at once, even in any particular moment. I remember going to networking events, and that's where we've bumped into each other a lot, where I go in and out of how authentic I want to be and how much I want to show up and how much permission I give myself, and how do I model that I am a rapid breakthrough specialist. I can help people shift out of a lot of patterns that people thought were permanent and stuck and forever, that help them shine and connect and do the work that they do in the world, right? I have these fun tools that help people do that. So I can walk in the room and I'm equal parts that. I love, Lexi, that you're here reminding me that part of my path in the last many years of being an entrepreneur has been, whether I have some sort of dizziness condition or some sort of illness that I'm dealing with, I'm also a person that has my own shit I'm going through.
Right.
And that's authentic and has value, whatever level of energy or health that I have access to at the moment. That's part of how I can connect with people. And that's just as valuable some days, some moments, some interactions as how ninja badass I can be with my skills. I'm also a former athlete. I'm also a vocalist and musician and performer and entertainer. Like, all of those things inform who I am.
Right.
And how, being able to read in the moment which version of that to be with anyone, and whether I'm allowed to be all of those.
Absolutely.
In any particular moment.
Absolutely. And in any particular group, because you can kind of get a vibe, like you walk into a room and you can kind of fill out, like, what part of me is allowed to show up in this room? Is allowed to show up in this space?
Yeah.
And I think that's, most of us are very intuitive. A lot of us consider ourselves empathic.
Right.
I know I do. And it's like I walk into a room and it's like, okay, check in. What, like you're saying, who am I allowed to be here? How much of me can I bring?
Right.
I know that over the years that has been like, I test the room, and even in this community that I connected with, this amazing community called Thrive Academy that I signed up for at the beginning of 2016 and went through all their programs all year long. It was like I was still like testing the waters. Okay, I brought this much of me, can I bring more?
Right.
Like I brought this much of me, can I bring more? So at the talent show, I still kept being received and loved, but there was like, right, but what if I fuck up? Or, I'm sorry, can we curse on this?
Fuck, yes,
okay,
please
sweet.
do.
I'm like, oh shit, I cursed.
Yeah. We won't be able to fucking boost it if we type fuck, but we'd say fuck in the middle.
Okay, good.
Pretty sure.
But there was this desire to bring the rougher edges and still test the water and be like, am I allowed here? So like for the talent show, I sang Adam Sandler at a medium pace.
Yeah.
Which, he's talking about sticking a shampoo bottle up his ass and pushing it in and out at a medium pace.
Right.
It's a love song.
Yeah, it is a love song.
And so, but I really I needed to see, can you accept this part of me?
Oh,
can you accept this part of me? What about this part? Am I all right now? You still think I'm cool now? That I'm talking about shampoo bottles and stuff? So,
yeah.
But I found that my whole life I tend to kind of test the waters, like, because I'm a big energy. I think that you can relate to that. Not only is it I can do lots of things, I am lots of things. Like I can like take up a lot of space in a room.
Well, and that's a big deal. Often it's really challenging. Those of us who are bigger presence, I have a book I've been chewing on that's about those people who are bigger, louder, passionate people that may have a bigger purpose. They need that much energy and they need to take up that much space so they can, and since they already do, they can utilize it. Like how do we show up big and full in a culture that often asks you to be small?
Absolutely.
One of the things why I wanted to get you here specifically is I think that you are trained, and part of your title as being a spiritual coach. I think one of the biggest ways that people can squish someone, or there's this massive way in which we're all striving at some level for a kind of meaning. Like spirituality in some ways is this like highest aspiration and also potential for wounding in some ways. This idea of like, okay, fine, culturally, socially, in this room with this person right now, how much of me am I allowed to fully be? And if I'm being this version of me, what about all of that like magic? Whatever you're like magic, do the fairies love me? Am I treating them well? Or like, am I in with the gurus? Am I ascending? Can I, like the sense of like we're not just trying to connect with a person at a minute, like are we connected with the person or are we connected to like however we engage with like spirit or God or purpose?
Right.
Will the aliens that are part of my species of the many lifetimes I've had here, are they still cool with who I'm being right now? Because I'm a star child from the planet, who knows what, like whatever your sense
all
of
that stuff is,
who you are in the moment. I was wanting to talk to you about that balancing act because I think even you're like specifically trained as a spirit coach.
I went through the Centers for Spiritual Living and became a licensed spiritual practitioner.
So you even had guidance.
Yeah, I went through many years of training. So I had to have like 5 of these 4-week classes already complete in order to qualify for the 2-year training.
Yeah.
And then it's 2 years of 30 weeks straight each year, 3 tests every 10 weeks. And then there's a written test, and then a panel in front of other ministers and practitioners where you're answering questions. And then you have to relicense every 2 years with certain educational credits. And certain volunteer credits, and so I was a licensed, basically, in the community that I was in. I was a part of the ecclesiastical arm of the center, which is basically the practitioners are right under the minister.
Right.
You know, so we're like on stage on Sunday doing affirmative prayer, and that's where I started seeing clients was through the spiritual community.
Yeah, and I want to bring that up and give you the opportunity to like say that, because there are people, and certainly if you're getting results with people, there are people who are they're walking down the street one day, they get a tap on their shoulder and they're like, hey, by the way, you need to be a spiritual coach. And they're like, okay. And then they just do. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Certainly you can feel a calling and then follow it however you follow it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when I hear somebody say, hey, I'm a spiritual coach, maybe less often in that case than I hear somebody say that I'm a shaman or I've been studying shamanic practices, and I go like, but I have a curiosity about like, how do you decide and how is that path? So getting to know sort of the lineage or the training or credentialing around something that's so central to and cellular to people.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Sure. Well, and I mean, you sort of did mention it, but the idea of like, so here's this lofty thing you're trained in helping people access, and then you're also able to be singing karaoke about Adam Sandler in the shower with shampoo bottle up his ass. And I
call that bandwidth.
Yes, well, and you bandwidth and access, and it's important to be able to connect with whoever you need to connect with, so that they can connect to their path.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm glad that you exist in that way.
Thank you.
And I'm curious, like, how much permission you give yourself in that title to have an actual life.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because, I just want to touch really quickly on the call. Yeah. Because I will say I had been seeing a spiritual practitioner for years before I got the call to become one. Yeah. You know, it's just like what they call it. But and part of it was it was like, oh my God, this philosophy has helped me so much that I want to learn how to help other people. And a lot of it was I was already trying to help other people.
Oh, yeah.
But it was mostly just my opinion and me thinking that everyone should live their life the way that I thought that they should.
Yes.
And I was like realizing that maybe wasn't that helpful.
That is a phase. That is part of it.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, so how can I actually be helpful without it being telling people what to do?
Yes.
And that's what I really liked about the practitioner path is it's more about holding space, teaching spiritual principle, holding non-judgmental space for someone to have a thing going on.
Right.
And as far as the real life thing, it's funny that you bring that up because I think part of the reason I left the spiritual community that I was a part of for 13 years, it was also a call. Yeah. It was that like one day I woke up and it was like, we don't need to go here anymore. Like there's something else.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to follow that call because my loyalty was to this community, But I realized after I left there, I had been participating in so many roles. Mm-hmm. I was at one point like 8 different roles. I was like leading the practitioners. I was involved in putting on retreats and classes, and I was there on Sunday both as a practitioner and as a musician.
Yeah.
And so I was like super involved in the community, and so to have this call to leave was really weird. But then I've been realizing over the last few years, which is why my focus is on coaches and healers going through personal crisis, because I sort of built my practice in the middle of personal crisis. So I've been challenged with chronic illness for over a decade.
Right.
And talk about needing to have a real life. Like this year has been really challenging because while my business is going better than it's ever been, my events are amazing. I'm booked until next spring as far as speakers go. I continue to get more private clients, and I'm really loving what I'm helping them with. And physical stuff has been more flared up this year than in years. Yeah. I've been in the ER like 6 times this year, just in the past 6 months. And it's challenging, and that's actually interesting that that's what I help my clients with because it's not something that it's like, oh, I figured out how to do that. It's something that I'm continuing to practice. Absolutely. And I will say that this last time I was in the ER, the week afterwards, I both was dealing with some really hard physical challenges that were hard to mentally frame. It's like, how do I hold this in my mind? Right. And then at the same time, I gave like 5 kick-ass sessions, gave an interview for, it's just like, and again, a bandwidth, right?
Totally.
It's like, you have to allow for both. I think there's this belief because we've been sold like the love and light version of spirituality, that it's just like the tiny tip of a really big iceberg. I think sometimes we make up a story that the way that we'll know we're doing spirituality right is if everything continues to get better and better and better and better and better and better.
Oh yeah, like life is only good.
Right, like it's like the stock market. We just want it to be a straight up shot.
Right.
And if there's a little dip, it's like, oh, what'd I do wrong?
Yeah.
I'm doing life wrong. And I teach a very different model of living where it's cyclical, where we're going to have up times and down times. Like I was just sharing with you before we started recording, I was going to be at an event yesterday and today. And that was not where I was at. Like when I signed up for the event, I was super excited about it. And when I woke up yesterday morning, like my body and my energy was screaming, that's not where you need to be right now. Yeah. And so I had to listen. So I'd say that that's a big part for me is how do you live a real life? And also, give, is really just listening. Listening to the parts of me that are coming from love, the parts of me that are coming from a higher place, that aren't coming from fear and lack and protection. And really, letting those lead the way. But it's an ongoing challenge to have a life and a business.
Totally. Well, and even in the sense of spirituality, of the framing of I'm energy, I'm spirit, I'm also a body, there are different, like, what does that mean? We have access to more than who we are, whichever version of God you connect to, the idea that you hand things over.
Yes.
And so I remember many times over sitting with clients and having my morning mantra sometimes, which is hilarious. It's not really a mantra. I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. And a good thing I don't need to.
Right?
Because one of the things is, so my training as a musician and performer and my training as an athlete in some ways is this dropping in and recognizing that there's a part of the practice that I've already done. There's the work I do before the game, before the client shows up, of installing all of the habits, all the small habits over time, rehearsing them, getting it in and getting good with the tools that I have, right? And when I walk out onto a stage, or when I would jump out, before the tennis match, there was always this sort of letting go and honoring the stage space that I was in, and recognizing that I was going to be jumping in and connected to an energy and a source that wasn't about me. It was going to come through me.
Yes.
And recognizing that I could be dizzy or ill. I think my very first quit smoking client, I had such level of exhaustion and anemia. I didn't quite know what was going on with me. I didn't have access to energy. And my left eye was twitching constantly. And this was week 2 of that. And I was in to help somebody, and they got their results. And I think there was 2 clients after that where I had no voice. I barely had a voice, and I'm doing hypnosis. And I had the idea that my job was to have a beautifully hypnotic voice, right? And I was off my game. I was stumbling over words. And the thing is that it was my job to hold the space in the container for something magical to happen.
Yep.
And that my idea of what I had to do, that I had to be working, that me doing a job or showing up for somebody looked in my head like a specific thing, wasn't at all what was happening.
No.
So in parts of the ways, like running into all of these instances of having illness over and over again, I started having to think of like, what can I do that I don't need to be what I thought was like fully in my health. Like certainly I'll be better at it if I have all of my health, but what also do I have to offer that I don't have to be at what I think is 100%? And then also the balance of like, how do I support myself so I can be healthier? What kind of work can I do that has value that doesn't require me to be healthier? And then how can I let go of this bullshit story I have about who I'm supposed to be for this to work out? Like a weird triangulation of those qualities. Like
huge.
If somebody has said yes to this work, there's a part of it that has nothing to do with either one of you, and the work's going to happen. It's like recognizing that on one level, everyone has access to their own resources and their changes. So they're the ones doing it anyway.
Yep.
And then potentially this like ethereal, I don't know what, but when everybody shows up for help or healing, it just happens, usually.
Yeah.
Right?
If there's allowing in the room.
Fair.
If there's allowing.
Well, and that's sort of part of my process, is that dropping into like letting go and a kind of allowing where I'm like, we've both shown up. I'm going to follow the intuition, but I'm going to be more vessel.
Yeah.
Than, speaking of allowing, I have a roommate that's arrived, and so she's going to wander in and out as you want to. Hey, Sarah, you are allowed to wander through the space however you need. I don't know. Did we get any questions now that we have a minute pause?
I don't see them. But I love what you just said, because it's funny. So I start and end all of my sessions, my private coaching sessions, with affirmative prayer.
Cool.
So I've been trained in this specific 5-step affirmative prayer. That's actually, the official title is a spiritual mind treatment, because the belief is the only thing that keeps us from, being a conduit for what we want is that our mind is in the way.
Yeah.
So that's the belief behind it, is that we're really just realigning our beliefs so that spirit can work through us.
Fair.
And so at the very beginning of every session, the focus of my affirmative prayer is just kind of remembering that the session is bigger than both of us, and just creating an energy of allowing and willingness and availability on both of our parts to just be available for whatever is going to come up.
Absolutely.
Trusting that it's time well spent.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that.
We're being available for this crossover.
Yeah, go ahead. Cross on over.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Gail.
Gail is relating and loving seeing the both of us.
Oh, thanks.
To say that I don't have a frame that I start every session with is not necessarily true. I do have a frame of how I get ready for every session, and what that allowing means in my own space, and having them arrive at a particular time, and how I open the space or open myself up, similar to like a vocal warm-up and grounding and that sort of thing, and clearing and often bouncing around. I like to activate my legs before I do things. And I oftentimes, because of whatever the client is working through, whatever I know, I sort of will do an opening that's like tailored and customized to whatever shifts they need. It's kind of fun.
That's what my ending prayer is. So the first prayer is just like opening, setting the tone, let's be available and present. And then the ending prayer is always specifically what they need. And what's been really cool is a few months ago, I started doing this with one of my clients, and now like half of my clients are into this, where I'll actually, so I used to just do the prayer and then say, and so it is, and hang up. And the reason why is because if I do this, really awesome supportive prayer, and they're like in the zone of saying yes to whatever they're saying yes to, and then we hop into pleasantries. Okay, well, I'll talk to you, and then we just bounce right back in our head. And so I would always like let them know. So I'm going to do this prayer. Like, what do you want prayer for? I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to say, and so it is, and I'm going to hang up.
And then linger there.
Right, just hang out in the energy. But a couple of my clients now, they get a recording. So I will ask them what they want prayer support for, hang up, and then go to my phone, record it, and then text it to them. And a couple of them just love being able to listen to those prayers more than once, because they are specifically, like you're saying, supportive, whatever came up during that session. And it's really lovely. And it's funny that we're talking about this. So I was just talking with my friend yesterday about an image that my dad taught me like 10 years ago, because he's also a spiritual practitioner and a musician and performer.
Oh, wow.
He had a band in like 1967 called The Stack, and like the doors opened for him.
What?
Yeah, he's big. Bill Sheppard. Hi, Dad. But one of the things that he gave to me years ago is this statement, and he said, "Be the straw." He said a straw doesn't exert any effort. It just is the container through which the stuff flows through.
Sure.
And whether I'm on stage singing, whether I'm doing public speaking, whether I'm in a session, like that's what I want to embody. It's really what we're talking is like be the straw. I like to say I'm a large conduit for lots of energy to move through me. I would say when I run big events, like I can literally feel like the energy like moving through me. And that's part of what I'm really good at. Is just like taking the energy and churning it back out. Like, give it right back.
Some of us are made for that. I don't know if I've publicly shared this story ever, but you just reminded me, like, one of the fun things about, I imagine we're all made for different, like you have a toaster, it does its toastery things. And you have a blender, it does its blendery things, and then there are cars. Like, different access to energy and transferring it. So I was, I'd say this about 8 or 9 years ago, I was in a songwriting class, and we did an ending showcase together, and I I finished this song 20 minutes before getting out. Like I just finished it. And it was this weird song. Normally songs just come through me in like 40 minutes or so, and I'm like, yeah, it's a song, and I craft it a little later. But this one took weeks, and it was, I'd wanted to have a song that had a hook that wasn't the chorus. And actually, it's the intro song that you didn't hear, but it is the intro song of the show from the Hip.
Oh, fun.
So the first time I ever performed that, it's this Alberta street pub. And I got up on the stage, and this was the first time, and I'd been actually, at that time in my life, it was my first experience of having been meditating and focusing on my spiritual practice and focusing on spirituality. It was the clearest my mind had ever been. And I didn't know. I was terrified of doing meditation because I didn't know that you could have creativity without a constant stream of 8 conversations, because that's what I'd had before. Like 8 voices at all times.
Like, if the 8 voices shut up, then what'll I do?
I can't fill my walls full of Post-it notes of half ideas, right? So it was my first experience of writing a song from silence for the first time ever. And I showed up, and it was the first time I'd performed anything that I hadn't ever practiced. So I put the lyrics on the floor or like on the monitor, and I'm up, and I take a deep breath, and I get on stage, and I think we did one song that we knew, and then so I did a song that I usually do, and then I jump into this new song. And I swear to you that I felt as though my body split open and then expanded, and I could suddenly not only feel, and like I could feel myself breathing with the room it was one of those bars that was like 2 sides. I could feel everybody in the room and their energy, and I could feel their breathing ebbing and flowing. I could feel all of the people in the bar, like sense the actual number of people, and I could feel the people walking around the building because I was the freaking building, and the air and the energy between us, like flowing and throbbing. It's just beautiful. And also I was singing at the same time and playing my guitar, one of the hardest guitar parts I'd ever written, shit tons of words. Like my MO before was like, I know, I'll have one word and a note and I'll just sing it for a really long time. Here's this song where it's like, like tons of words.
Lots going on.
But just, like I'd always dropped into that kind of energy flow before, but never so big that I was the dang building and then I was the block. And I gotta tell you, the next day was hard.
Because were you smaller?
I was just a person.
Dang it.
I was no longer a block of Northeast Portland. I was not feeling the energy and like I was not breathing everyone's breath. It was a very interesting thing to have the experience of just being this big energetic conduit in that massive way, effortlessly. And then go to the grocery store the next day.
Yeah. It's kind of anticlimactic.
It's weird. It's challenging.
And
I got really into, and I know part of the path for a lot of us is in addition to like, how do we show up authentically? How do we navigate the different sized waves that life has?
Yeah, that's huge. Like just like the last 2 days of me not going to this event.
Yeah.
Like my ego is FOMOing and making up shit and going, why did you pay for this event if you're not going to, you know, my ego and personality and brain, my logic has a lot to say about me not going. And yet my energy and my body are just so clear.
Yeah.
That like, that is not where I was supposed to be, and that's okay. So one of the things I was just journaling about, it's like, not only knowing that we're cyclical beings, but actually giving ourselves permission to be cyclical beings in the cycle.
Yeah.
So it's like the last 3 days, I literally sat around and read Harry Potter. Like I just sat there on the couch. And for anybody who knows me, I have a lot of energy. For me to just sit still for 3 days is like a big deal.
Right.
But everything inside of me was screaming, just sit still for a minute.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did, because I was starting to get that little sinus tickle and the little back of the throat tickle. And that's all it was. It was a tickle, and then now I'm fine.
Right.
And I know that if I would have pushed through and like, you know, we have to do the thing, I probably not only would I not be sitting here with you right now, because I'd be at this event, but I'd probably feel like shit tomorrow.
Totally.
And then I wouldn't have myself to give to my clients that I have coming up this week.
And yourself,
and my family, and myself, and all of those things. And so it's just it. And in my journaling, it's like, I have to give myself permission. One of the things, you know, that I have been told I'm really good at in general as a human and in my sessions is meeting people right where they're at. And so I was asking myself yesterday, it's like, am I willing to meet me where I'm at?
Absolutely.
You know, am I willing to be like, okay, so I'm actually not in the mood to sit in a room with a bunch of women and process together today. I really just want to sit and read Order of the Phoenix. Like, is that all right?
Yeah.
And it was all right. And so it is an ongoing challenge to, you know, not only listen, but to act on what we hear.
Totally.
Because in my experience and experience with a lot of the clients who come to me, if we don't act on what we hear, then those voices stop being so loud and stop being so recognizable.
True. And a lot of the work that we do with people is helping them dismantle the stories of who they think they are, who they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to show up. I mean, we started this conversation talking a bit about like, who do you present? How much of you can be in one space? How much space can you take up? How many versions of you do you get to be? And even just allowing our own selves. I've been in therapy for about 3 years, and I came up with this joke the other day that is only funny if you get what therapy is about. So it's just not it's an amazing joke. I wanna let you know that this joke is awesome and you're going to love it. But only if you get it. All jokes are only funny if you get it.
It's true.
So I've been going to therapy for a while now, and I'm starting to think there's absolutely nothing wrong with me.
Right?
I know.
Isn't that great?
And one of the things that, whatever the session was before I had that hilarious realization was the idea that I had had an experience of like spending time with some people and not being all that particularly interesting me. Not feeling like I was, like, I went to New York. I was in New York for about 4 or 5 days, and we went and did a bunch of things, and I don't remember, I didn't get into super deep conversations. I have a story about myself that I just love the deep conversations, and that's who I am, and that's what I'm for. I didn't shoot it, I didn't turn anything into some sort of creative project. I just wandered around New York as a person, and I was really uncomfortable with that idea. Like, people kept asking, what are you going to New York for? And I'm like, yeah. The fuck am I going to New York for? Why? What? Because I didn't make something of it. I didn't perform, I didn't speak. All of my ideas about me traveling were about somebody flying me to something and needing to utilize they needed the Adrianne to be in New York. But I was just, I was just there. And apparently, there's a version of me, when I got back, it was about a week later, I was sitting here eating breakfast, and I was going through a phase of eating the same breakfast, not only every day, but twice a day for a week.
I really liked that breakfast.
I loved it. And I had this moment of recognizing, I am supremely boring right now, and I love myself so much.
That's huge.
I'm not entertaining anybody. I haven't produced anything. I haven't helped anyone. I have eaten broccoli, eggs, and sausage. There's a little spinach under there, olive oil, and I've, watched some TV. I've just sort of been here.
Yeah.
And I was in love with, like, that being enough, that version of me. It's not all that interesting.
But it was all right.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah.
That's huge.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that we miss out on so much of ourselves if we don't have that opportunity to just be with ourselves.
Yeah.
And have that be okay. I mean, I can relate to the performing thing. I actually saw someone so there's a book called Undefended Love that's just phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It's a great relationship book. It's, it talks more about intimacy and spouses, but I think it can be applied to everything. And there's a lot of the concepts in that book that I sort of use as the core of my coaching and teaching.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's really great about that book, and I lost it. Oh, dang, I had something really good to say.
Okay.
Where was it? Do you remember what it was?
Just pull back. We got some hearts. That was fun.
Oh, thanks for the hearts.
So this book.
What was it? I was like, it was right there. I hate it when I lose the thing.
It's still where you left it.
I know, it's still where I left it.
And it's going to be in the last place that you look.
Oh, yeah. It was really about, so I saw this practitioner who taught the Undefended Love model and had actually trained with the authors. And he was here in Portland at the center that I was at. And so I took a session with him. Whew, that was a really hard session. Because one of the things that he reflected back to me was that because my mother was a narcissist and I was never allowed to be who I was, that I was constantly performing. And all of a sudden I left there and I was like, I'm disgusting. I'm a fake. I'm a fraud. Everything I do is a manipulation. Everything I do is for performance. It was just like the story about me twisted and became really ugly.
Right.
And actually for about 6 months, I couldn't perform. I didn't do the talent show that year at the center that I always was a part of. And I sort of just like went within and was kind of disgusted with myself for a while. It was a really, I wish that he would have presented it in a little bit of a different way.
Like in order to survive.
Right. Like I just, as a practitioner, looking back on that session, I'm like, yes, I got some good stuff out of it and I'm glad for that awareness, but it maybe could have been presented in a little bit of a different way that could have been not so painful and traumatic for me.
Absolutely.
But what was really great about that was after I went through the phase of feeling disgusted with myself as a human being, I realized that I wasn't always performing.
Right.
That there was a difference. There was a performance where I went on stage and went, I'm great, right? And then there was a performance, like we were talking about earlier, where I am available for whatever to come through me.
Yeah, there's a theater that's necessary for a lot of life.
Yeah, and that there is a felt difference in me, even if you can't tell the difference. I could tell the difference. And I noticed even like when I sang, if I was singing more from I'm gonna sound great, and then people would give me compliments, I wouldn't be able to receive them. I'd be like, oh, well, I've been better, da, 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 da. But when I am in, like, I'm giving whatever's coming through me, and I'm even kind of in awe.
Right.
Like, whoa, that just came through me?
Heck yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I just get myself chills. And then when people complimented me, I could be like, thank you, because I wasn't really receiving it about me.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we're coming back to the conduit again.
Yeah.
You know, and how can I be that conduit for what is coming through me? And have a, you know, so I had to shift my relationship with the idea of performing in order for me to kind of come full circle and have been a really great thing for me.
Heck yeah.
But you know, it was challenging for a while when we see our shadow side and we don't have a lot of support to go shadow and
Yes.
you're not just your shadow.
Yeah, well, we can go back to straws and stretch this metaphor. So
right?
So even the sense of, you know, the structure of a conduit, there's a structure that's there.
Yes.
Performance. And I was talking about oftentimes theater is necessary. Like these ceremonies that we do, these agreements that we make, that if you're literally on a stage, it has rules and it has structure there to support something magical happening in a particular way. And like the idea of people who go into a trance and they're like, oh no, I'm gonna look up into my eyebrows and my eyes are gonna twitch and then I'm gonna do a thing. There are ways to access, and the difference of performance and theater, I think about how sometimes we need to perform something in order to create the container for connection, to create the container for people to ease into the changes that they're making. They talk about like the airport security is mostly just safety theater, because none of the things that we have to do necessarily make us feel more safe, except that since we've done them, we then feel more safe.
Right. Well, we are ritualistic beings.
Right.
It's just most of our rituals now are around consuming.
Right.
And buying things. But if we can get into, like you're saying, like you do that and you do that and then that and then that. Always. You do that and that and that and that. There's something like our whole physiological nature is like, okay, cool. I know what to do. I know what's next. Like, we like that.
And it's fun, the difference you shared about what you feel, like your kinesthetic, you're feeling internally about the difference of performance. They're both performing, but there's a version that has a different feeling. It's received better, you receive it better. There's probably less tension in your body.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. We're all essentially performing. I mean, and the gentleman that I was saying earlier that it was a coping strategy. I do have all sorts of aspects of my personality that I created and installed and modeled from TV shows to survive elementary school, high school, my own family, where going in and out of whether I'm like deeply allowing my selves to show up or if I'm just like gesturing at the selves.
Yeah.
There's a really sweet, the character that I loved in Buffy. I like identify with a character, and I sort of loved and hated that I identified with this character, Anya, who is the former vengeance demon. If anybody's watched Buffy, there's this amazing shared dream they have in one of the seasons, some ridiculous, dream world that all of the characters are in, and there's Anya, who's not human, and she's supposed to be driving this ice cream truck, and so she here's the steering wheel, and she's gesturing her arms like this. Like the truck is moving, and she's like, I am steering the truck. This is what Xander does, right? And there's a lot of times that image comes up at me because I feel sometimes like I'm stretching to Adrianne in some moment.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know Adrianne does this, and her hair wiggles, and it's cute, and this is what I am supposed to do.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when I'm thinking what do I want to do with my life? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And I have all of the answers to that, and they're almost always the same every time I approach it, but I can't always feel it. They don't
always feel aligned. That clunk where you're like, yeah.
I don't feel it. I feel like I'm pretending to do my life. But I remember that all of the things are the same. I still like burgers and steak, and I still like sweet potato fries, and I probably should take more walks, and I enjoy it, but I'm not in it.
Yeah. That's so funny because the last event that we were at, the Sovereign Salon that Teresa Pridemore puts on, I was talking about that, how I had been doing this morning practice all year long. It's felt so good. It's the first time in my adult life I've had a morning practice that I've done on a regular stretch of time and actually enjoyed it. And then, as I shared in the group, it was there was a couple weeks where I was doing the practice to perform to myself that I was doing the practice.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it didn't feel good anymore. And then I stopped doing it. And then I didn't do it for like 4 weeks, and that didn't feel good because then my mornings were all weird. I'm like, what do I do with myself? But it took me to realize that I had been performing to myself to make it different, to be like, okay, so I don't want my morning practice to just be so I can tell people I did a fucking morning practice.
Yeah,
that's not what it's for.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the drawing board last week and I redid it. And now it's really about what I'm calling soul time. And it says, Starr, you have to get in soul time. And then it's like, how many minutes of soul time did you get in today? And then I've got some certain activities that feel like soul time to me. But it's like, then you can get to the brain stuff and check off your little list. But I was like jumping too much into the ego check mark. I did the thing first.
Right.
But sometimes it's like we have to get into the funkiness and be like, something's off. And then step back and wait a while and then be like, oh, it's because I wasn't actually there.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't actually doing it.
Totally.
You know, I thought I was, but I wasn't. And this is funny because I feel like this, you know, all this thread that's weaving through all the things that we're talking about, it's like, okay, so if my story about me says that I'm always like this, how can I give myself permission to be a cyclical being?
Right.
If my story about me says I love people and I'm always down to meet new people and I love being in the room with people, then how can I give myself permission to not show up to that event yesterday? Because it's like, that's why my ego was having so much trouble.
Right.
It's like, but Starr loves to show up to events where lots of people are in the room.
No.
She does, except today she doesn't. And can I be okay with that? Can I allow the different parts of me to show up at different times? And can I allow the story about me to be flexible enough to, you know, because I think sometimes it's like, because our society is such a one right way society,
Yeah.
then we internalize that and we view ourselves as the one right me. Like, if I'm not acting just like this, what did I do wrong?
Right.
You know, or how do I get me back on track? And so I think it's really important to that permission and allowing, you know, what does your winter look like? What does your spring look like? You know, what is, like, we don't have to, I tell people that this culture, it's like summer all the time.
Yes.
It's like we are convinced that we can defy nature and always be growing and never have stillness. And that's like just not possible. There are cycles in nature on purpose because there needs to be that oomph of growth, and then the falling down, and then the dark and the quiet, and that little reopening and looking back out again, like it's all part of the cycle. And if we're trying to push for summer all the time, we miss the gifts of the other 3 seasons.
Well, and the other thing is that if you don't allow all of that flexibility, even in the sense of like emotions, say, improving that, like if you damp down any particular emotions, your ability to feel and experience things increases your ability to feel and experience things.
Exactly.
That is where the science says
Yes.
we're at. Like if you are able to allow yourself your moments of winter, you will have a more expansive summer. And you will only have the expansiveness that you allow in any particular direction.
Exactly. Yeah, I tell my clients the depth to which you can feel despair is the height to which you can feel joy.
Yes.
You either feel or you don't.
Right.
You either are numb or you feel. And you don't get to just, can I just pick the good ones?
Right.
Like, you don't. And so that's where I come back to bandwidths. It's like that week where I'm out of the ER, I'm feeling a lot of shame because I didn't get to help my friend with her event because my physical stuff was flared. And I'm doing all these 5 sessions and impacting all these people's lives in this amazing way, like all in the same week, some of it all in the same day.
Yeah.
And that's bandwidth, that's life. And so it's really, I think sometimes spirituality gets twisted into, you know, if you make the right choices, your life won't ever have bumps. And I just think that's a really, like you were talking about wounding earlier, I think that's where the wounding comes in, is it's a really dangerous view to think it's like transacting with the divine. And then we're back to Christianity pleasing a guy in the sky and doing what he said, and if I do it good, then I get good things, and if I do it bad, I get bad things. Yeah. And I don't buy into that view of spirituality. I don't think it's that black and white. We're not individualized bubbles of consciousness.
Well,
we don't just create what we're thinking.
Jesus didn't think that either.
Exactly.
By the way, sadly.
Thank you.
Like his PR team is not aligned with his branding.
I would say, I love that. I would say the same goes for anything. Like, you know, I had to step away from the spiritual community. I love the Centers for Spiritual Living. It taught me so much. but it had started to go down that love and light, shame anything that isn't perfect path. And I don't believe that. And I even just recently, I've been opening up my Science of Mind textbook and being like, questioning my own beliefs. Like, do I still believe in this philosophy, or have I moved on? But he's not teaching that. Ernest Holmes is like, you never replace human fact with spiritual truth. It just comes alongside. And that's the both and. Like, you're talking about how to be a human in a human body. It's like, it's the both and. I'm a human having a human experience, and I'm also a spiritual being having a spiritual. It's both. It's not either or. And I think sometimes in our desire to just make the enlightenment mean we only feel the good feelings,
Right.
We can really damage ourselves and leave out. We try to replace instead of accompany.
Right.
We try to take the spiritual truth and replace the human pain. I'm going to just wipe that human pain away and I'll be spiritually true. And it's not how it works. We're in a human body. We have to have both. We can have the human fact and the spiritual truth, and they can hang out right next to each other. They don't have to be in a battle.
Absolutely. One of the things I want to talk about is, so we're talking about, as she's talking about she, talking about bandwidth. We are in Facebook Live. That's the theory. We have a lot of bandwidth. I have whole giggity double ways, both ways, guys. My internet flows both ways. We're in a space of Facebook Live where oftentimes people will only showcase certain aspects of themselves. So we're in the container of Facebook world.
Yeah.
With you, having a moment and opportunity to connect with each other in a way we haven't before, because we've never had this conversation before.
No.
You're here with us. Isn't that sweet? So we always have an opportunity for both and many all, right? So in Facebook world, we have people with many different opinions and conversations and things colliding, and we get to choose how we engage with it. We get to choose what we show in the world, and there's a lot going on.
Oh my God, so much going on.
I'm excited that you're here, those of you who have joined us, that we can use something in any particular way we choose. We can show up, we can show as many aspects of ourselves, that we have this opportunity to combine a lot of structured spaces. I was going to say that one of the funniest things about this idea that there's one way to be, or one path to follow, or one version of yourself to bring. Sorry, microphone, I probably touched you. That one of the ways that you can most, the only way that you can find out if you belong in the world is to be fully and completely who you are.
Yeah.
It's the only way. You'll never know if people love you for who you are if you're not being yourself completely. And the other thing that's actually fascinating is the more real and authentic you are, the more you showcase all of who you are, the more people relate to your story. People think we need to sort of like generalize, but the more specific and more you are fully yourself, the easier it is for people to see themselves in you.
Yeah, I've learned that. I came out of the spiritual community thinking I had to present a very together, perfect version of myself, because that was sort of what was taught. And I'm learning over the years that it's so much more fun to just be myself, and it's so much more attractive. Yeah. Both as a person and as a coach, to have people, share, be like, oh gosh, I didn't know you went through that. I got to publish my story for the first time this year in a book. So I'm a published author.
Hell yeah!
And it's called Warrior Women with Angel Wings Born to Love. And that was a big deal for me to share certain aspects of my story that I just, you don't talk about at networking events, and maybe you don't even talk about in your little 10-minute talk, because it's hard, heavy stuff. And not everyone is willing to hold space for heavy stuff.
Yeah.
I know that you had Jen Violi a while back, and her and I were recently talking about like the idea of grief, where if you bring up something to someone and you're in grief, how you can literally see them like bat it away like a fly. Oh, you're fine. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's bad. Like, move on.
The worst feeling. You're feeling the worst you've ever, and the most horrifying thing has happened. That's awesome. It's contagious.
Poo. Yeah, I know, right? Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
But so it's, it's not always safe to bring up these heavy things, because people be like, okay, that's too much. I'm out of here. Yeah. So it was a really big deal to share my story, and I've actually had a few clients who signed up because they read my story and they're like, okay, I already thought you were the one. And now I read, your chapter and it's like, oh God, yep, you're the one that needs to help me. And so, and over again, I was just at a networking event a couple Saturdays ago and shared my story and got to speak for 10 minutes. And again, I asked for feedback because they're like, ask for feedback. It's like, so, marketing language, what do you hear here that would, that you'd pull out? And they were all like, your story. I was just leaning in. Your story is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And that's
I
the
hear
truth.
you, universe.
That's the truth about you. That's the truth about me. That's the truth about you.
Yeah.
It's the truth about all of us.
Story.
Our
Hi,
own
Amy.
story draws people in.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, going back to the performing thing and also how vulnerable are we willing to share it? Because, that was a big deal for me to write that chapter because I had like 5 or 6, go-arounds. And the first one that I wrote, it wasn't even my story. It was like all the shitty people in my life got to be in this chapter, but I didn't.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, wait, who am I writing this for again?
Right, yeah.
And I had to, and then I really struggled with either being the champion who overcame the thing or the horrible victim that was, put upon by the earth. It's like, I didn't want to be either one of those people.
Yeah.
And so to really find that authentic voice that is vulnerable, but is also not, is not like trying to make myself out as some now perfect being because I have gone through whatever.
Absolutely.
That's a challenge, but I think it's also really important to give ourselves permission to share from the heart and share vulnerably and share things that are maybe scary to share because that's really juicy.
Absolutely. I have potentially, we can check in. Somebody had an aha moment. I want to check in on that in a minute.
Yeah.
I had somebody in an episode that was recorded and I haven't been able to put it out in the world because I think the video conferencing I was using was broken, but he said, this quote was like, you know what? Living is about the hardest thing you'll ever do.
I love it.
Yeah.
So great.
Okay, someone has a little bit of an aha moment. If you don't show people exactly who you are,
Yes.
how can you know if people will like you for who you are?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you for loving that one. Forgive me. I could probably attempt to pronounce your name. Other people don't see
She
it on
goes
the
by
screen.
Carrie.
Carrie, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
Carrie.
the assist there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, if I can't literally and directly ask you how you would like me to proceed to attempt to say your name or not. I'm not sure which thing is more or less impolite.
Oh, that's awesome. Hi, Carrie.
Well, thanks for the feedback, those of you who've been here.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and I love that you're here. I love that you came and hung out with me. I love
too.
that you're
Thanks for inviting me.
my family of businessy people.
So fun.
Yeah, and I love whatever this is. I guess maybe you'll write me questions and we'll both check in and type at you.
Yeah, please.
Later.
Yeah,
I don't
we'll
know
come
if
back
anybody's on
around.
for a question now. There's usually a delay.
A little bit of a delay.
Yeah. Totally relate. We're spot on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Feel free to ask any questions before we wrap up if you have any.
Yeah. Well, and you can ask questions after we've wrapped up.
That's true. That's true. You just won't get it live on the feed.
Yeah. Different level of feedback.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I appreciate you. And I know that you and I have been, circling around each other for several years, like you said, the coffee and different networking events that I saw you speak at and then we connected with. And I love how we have so much in common and so much different from each other. It's really fun that we have, a lot of overlap in our viewpoints and how we work with our clients and what we believe. I know that we spend a lot of time on Facebook kind of cheering each other on, like, I agree. We have a lot of viewpoints around society, and that's all I'll say about that. But I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to come here and connect with you. As performers and vocalists and coaches and leaders and just rad people.
Yeah.
It's been really fun.
Hell yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm looking forward to whenever we get together and do a duet.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that'd
Let's
be
get
so
that
fun.
on the calendar.
I'm
sometime.
down.
I'm gonna have to remember how to sing and play my guitar though. Just details.
I always have an egg shaker in my purse if you want to practice.
Perfect. Perfect. Alrighty. I think with that moment, we can press whatever buttons we press for the thing of saying thank you for being here. We love you. We'll see you
Thank
next
you
time.
all.
Well, that's how that went. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Thanks for watching, listening, I don't know, reading, imbibing, however you took this in. Thanks for being here. And if you really enjoyed it, I'd love it if you would do all of the things. Like, share, I don't know, ring a bell, bang a gong, tell a friend, and come back next time. I hope you had as much fun as I had.